you ask, what's the why? The why isn't because I love, balancing budgets and, dealing with compliance. That's not the why. The why is because I really care about these kids and their families. And I really care about the future of my Los Angeles and my country, my world. And that's why I do this.
You're listening to the Bold by Choice podcast with Vashanta Harris and Jim Gunner. Real talk about charter schools, from the boardroom to the classroom, powered by the National Charter Schools Institute.
Well, welcome back, friends, to the Bold by Choice podcast, where we are shining a light on schools worth bragging about and the amazing leaders who are boldly reimagining what's possible for students. I'm your host, Vashanta Harris. And today, friends, Jim is traveling. He would normally be with us. He sends his regards. But we are going to head over to Los Angeles. And we're going to visit a school here today that has truly been living out the promise of diversity, belonging, bilingualism, long before those words became part of this national conversation. So the school we're talking to today is the Multicultural Learning Center. It was founded more than 2 decades ago at a time where California law actually prohibited bilingual instruction in many ways. And that mother-daughter duo team who believed very, very deeply in public education, in student identity, and in the power of language to connect communities. What they have built has not just shaped students' academic outcomes, but has also really built students up to believe in themselves and who they can really be in the world. So with that being said, I am extremely honored to be joined today by Gayle Nadler, Executive Director of Multicultural Learning Center. Gayle, I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, before we jump in, you and I actually got a time to sit together and talk and learn a bit about each other. I'd love to first give you the opportunity to share with our audience who you are and kind of what it is that you do overall, and then we'll jump into our questions.
Okay. Well, as you said, I am Gayle Nadler. I am the co-founder and executive director of Multicultural Learning Center here in Los Angeles. I'm also a native Californian and native to Los Angeles, which is a rare thing these days. And Multicultural Learning Center is a school, a charter school, TK8, that my mother and I opened in 2001. And it's a very, very special place. It is focused on celebrating the diversity of Los Angeles and really taking advantage of some of the assets we have here in this community to develop students who are bilingual, biliterate in English and Spanish, who are able to look at the world from many different perspectives, who have the confidence to speak up against injustice, and are comfortable navigating diverse spaces and being able to communicate in 2 languages.
It's so beautiful. And I'm kind of bubbling over a little bit because I love the story that we're going to talk about. And I'm really inspired by it. And so you shared with me the other day the experience that you had as a 4th grader. And I really love that story. When we talked about it the other day, it stayed with me. I've been thinking about that story all week long. Can you take us and our listeners back to that moment and share how that experience shaped the way that you think about what's good for students and ultimately the design of your school?
Yeah, I love this story too. So when I when I was in the 4th grade, this was in the late 70s, and I lived here in Los Angeles, actually in the town of Canoga Park, where my charter school is now. But at that time, it was a very different community, it was a very different time. It was not a very diverse part of Los Angeles. Canoga Park was predominantly middle class white families at the time. And my mom had been an educator for many years in the Los Angeles Unified School District. And what was happening at that time is that the school district was being faced with a court-ordered desegregation mandate. And that led to busing in in the city of Los Angeles. It was a solution to the requirements for desegregation, which was to take students from different parts of the city, put them on buses, and move them around so
Mm.
that you would have diversity in the schools. And at the time, you can imagine in my community, this was not met with favorable responses. People did not want their children going on buses across the city. They had moved to this area because of the good schools. They wanted their kids to go to the neighborhood school. My mother was on the opposite side of that fence. In fact, she took my brother and I and crossed picket lines to put us in our seats in school so that our attendance would be counted because she believed that this should happen. She did not participate in the boycotts.
Mm.
Um, so she volunteered us for this experiment, and we were able to go to a magnet school called 32nd Street Elementary in South Los Angeles. And those of you who don't know Los Angeles, or those of you who do, we don't measure distance in miles, we measure distance in hours. So this meant about 3 hours a day on the bus
Wow.
going to and from school. And when I got there, I was really excited. I thought this was an adventure. Yes, the bus ride was long, but my brother and I had never really been to these parts of Los Angeles, and I even to this day, as I drive across town, I look out my window and I see all the landmarks that I used to use as a
Mhm.
kid to tell me that, oh, we're almost at school.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was very excited. In my fourth grade class, when I started, I was placed in a bilingual classroom. So I did not speak Spanish. I was not um, needing any support in Spanish. Um, but all of my peers were Hispanic in my class, and they all spoke Spanish.
Hmm.
And very few of them spoke English. And I was fascinated by this. I thought this was amazing. This was so different from my experience in school. And I wanted to learn Spanish too, because as a fourth grader, what was most important to me was that I made friends in my new school
That's right.
and that I felt like I belonged. Um, but unfortunately, despite my advocacy to my teacher, the plan was never to teach me and the few other kids who came on the bus Spanish. We we were taught in English in one corner of the classroom while the rest of the students were taught in Spanish. And this didn't sit well with me and I as a way to navigate this situation and get that sense of belonging, I made friends with Monica, who was one of the students who was bilingual. And she was able to translate for me on the playground to help me navigate friendships. And I had the most incredible year. Unfortunately, despite all that effort, the next year, we were completely segregated in the school. So in my fifth grade class, it was full. It was filled with kids who came with me on the bus, and there I didn't get to see Monica and all the friends I had made in fourth grade.
That is totally like when I think about the power that could have been captured had you been able to learn Spanish and like had those opportunities to make even more friends, even though you all didn't speak the same language. And like, I can't imagine how that felt, right? To this fourth grade child who's in a classroom with all of these kids and really trying to figure out, like, how do you make those friendships across those language barriers? So thank you for taking me there because when I listened to your story, I was like, wow, how different of an experience I had. And I don't even know if my mind conceptualized that there are students who are navigating this in different ways across our countries in their school buildings.
Yeah, and I don't think, obviously at 9, 10 years old, I don't know what I thought about it. All I knew was there was an obstacle for for me. I wasn't able to develop relationships with my classmates in a really meaningful way.
Hmm.
And that stuck with me for years. And I think it changed how I see the world. It also put into question for me, and I remember sitting with my mom, and we had a large home with a swimming pool in a nice neighborhood. And I could see what the neighborhood looked like around my school.
Mhm.
And I couldn't understand it. To me, I would cry at night because it didn't seem fair to me. And I was embarrassed by what
Mhm.
I had. And I wanted to share that with my friends so badly. And yet I couldn't even get there because I couldn't bring them home with me. I couldn't stay to
Mhm.
go home with them, and I just remember that entire year, all I really cared about was connecting
Yeah.
with the children in my class. And I found a way, and we I wish I could find them. Like,
Yeah.
we just created this incredible community. And it was a life-changing moment.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, and 20 years later, completely set in motion the design of the Multicultural Learning Center.
That's right. So we fast forward, you as an adult are in the education space, and so is your mom.
Mhm.
And the next thing I wanted to talk about is your mom. You and your mom had this moment that you shared, and I think you had your daughter and your got some chart
Mhm.
paper out, and you all are starting to think about what it is that you've seen in the world, what you've seen in the education space, and like what you wanted to do differently and build together. Can you take us to that season of your life? What were some of the conversations that you and your mom were having that led you to start thinking about, you know what? We think we want to design a school.
Yeah, so 20 years later, my mom and I were working in education reform here in LA. And I had my first child who was 5 months old, and it was her first grandchild. And we would often talk about, thinking as, people who worked in the education space and knew what was possible, where are we going to send her to school? And my mom came to me one day and she said, she was in her 60s, and she said, I think I'm going to retire, or, the charter movement is gaining momentum here in Los Angeles. What if we open a charter school? And I said, oh, yeah, let's open a charter school. What's a charter school? But let's, how do we do that? So we started, as visionaries do, we started with the dream. We'll figure out the how later. We started with the dream, and we spread out the chart paper on the floor, and my daughter was crawling over it, trying to rip it and grabbing the markers. And we started dreaming what this school could be. And I actually
Mhm.
have a notebook that has some of the my mom wrote Gayle's dream at the top, and then
Wow.
all that her notes of all the things I said this school had to be. Um, and I really wanted public education for my daughter. Um, I really wanted her to, and my children and all the children, to experience the diversity of Los Angeles. So the header was Gayle's dream, and the words to describe the school that I wanted to build for my daughter these were the exact phrases: balanced literacy, speaking in two languages, confidence in learning, feeling good about herself and what she can do, lots of arts, smart and talented teachers, learning about other cultures, being able to express what she knows in different ways, and nurturing of her strength.
So
That
you and
was
your mom are talking, and like these are your phrases that you're just
these
like
are the
coming out
phrases.
with. Wow.
This is what was on the chart paper, on the notes, and I still have a framed picture of it. Um, so we then took those words and created a school. And it was really driven by our desire for my children, her grandchildren, all the children in Los Angeles, to have an opportunity to experience the diversity. We wanted the
Mhm.
diversity of our city to be an asset in a school. I didn't want my daughter to have to take a bus for 3 hours a day to
Mhm.
experience the richness of our city. But we didn't really need that anymore because now the town of Canoga Park, where we lived in when I was bused, was now a much more diverse community. The San
Mhm.
Fernando Valley itself had completely changed in the last 20 years. So we didn't need the buses.
That's
We just
right.
needed to build the school. And it, it it really was our belief that we thought that a school should be able to not only serve the community that the we believe that a school had the ability to not only serve the families in the school, but to have an impact beyond the school, to
Mhm.
impact the entire community. And was our inspiration to build MLC.
And so you all start planning and building, all the steps, right? You got to get this application in and go through the process. And you're getting ready to open up, and your building is opening just days before 9/11. Take us to that time. How did opening during that particular time? You guys also had Prop 227 going on. How did that shape you as a leader and as a human being?
Yeah, well, it was a challenge. We'll start with, opening a dual immersion school, bilingual immersion, 90-10 Spanish English model in the era of Prop 227, which in California was prohibiting bilingual education. The advantage to that was there were a lot of programs closing, and we were able to scoop up materials,
Mhm.
teachers, families who believed so strongly in the program that they wanted to help us build ours. By
Yeah.
virtue of it being a charter, we were able to do this. Um, And I don't think we knew when we opened how difficult that battle was going to be.
Mhm.
Charter schools were relatively new in California, new in Los Angeles in particular. And I don't think we really knew what we were facing in regards to that uphill battle.
Mhm.
And then, oh, our third day of school was 9/11, and that I was like a huge sign of inspiration. I
Mhm.
think it was we no matter what the challenge is, we have to beat it.
Yeah.
We This world is needs our school. It became so much bigger than us trying to create a small school in the city of Los Angeles that would, meet the needs of a diverse community. It suddenly became an imperative mission
Mhm.
globally. And I think that shifted our mindset in terms of what we were about to embark upon.
That's right. So
Um,
you have this this local challenge going on, but also this national event, that all, in the way that I think about it in my mind, like creates this snowball, right, of fire in you and your mom with your inspiration and passion for creating the Multicultural Learning Center. And the next thing I wanted to talk about, right? So now you've built this school, you have all this inspiration behind it and motivation and mission. And sometimes I think we all have assumptions when we hear a bilingual education or dual language school, but your school is a little bit different. What problems were you trying to solve for the students and families in your school? And how would you explain the way that you all approach your dual language bilingual program?
yeah. So I think, the dual language program itself came to us partly because of my experience in fourth
Hmm.
grade, partly because of all the research that we had seen about the benefits of a bilingual education. We traveled up and down the state looking at model schools, trying to determine how we could make this happen here in Los Angeles. Um, and I think for us, the biggest piece of that was why should the community of Los Angeles, the students who are native Spanish speakers, why should they have to give up their identity, their home language, their culture in order to learn English? We
Hmm.
felt that was not necessary. And wrong. And so we knew that this model was really designed to uh, support students and to enable students, keep their home language and view that language as an asset, not just for them, but for everyone.
Mhm.
And so why shouldn't students who don't speak Spanish in their home, they should be also learning Spanish. So ours is a
Mhm.
two-way bilingual immersion, which is a little bit different than other types of language models, meaning that we have a balance of students who have an English speaking background or a Spanish speaking background or some combination of the two. But it's a two-way program. So they're both learning. We have a school filled with language learners. Every single student is a language learner. They are learning in one language or another for the first time. Um, and it was really about that equity. And also that, going back to the global focus, right?
Mhm.
In order to
Mhm.
really, be able to, for our students, when they grow up, to be able to become global citizens, they are going to need to speak more than one language.
That's right.
Um, and learning in language is not just, at least for us, it's not just the technical learning of two languages and a dual language, model. Students learn a percentage of their day in one language, percentage of their day in English. It's not just about language; it's really about cultural
Mhm.
understanding, um, and really bridging the gaps between students from different backgrounds so that they can learn
Mhm.
together more meaningfully
Mhm.
through language, but also through culture and sharing of their cultures and identities. Um, so you asked me to talk about the school in my
Mhm.
own words. I'm going to
Yeah.
quote our vision statement. I wrote it. So it is my own words, even though it's what's
Yeah.
on paper. I wrote it and I wrote it back then. I wrote it back in the days when my daughter was 5 months old and we were building the school. And I think when we talk about, well, who we are and what we created and what our dual immersion program is, this is it. So MLC, or Multicultural Learning Center, we call ourselves MLC also, brings together a diverse community of learners where cultural and individual differences are the building blocks of academic, social, and intrapersonal success.
Wow.
So even though I wrote that a really long time ago, we've never changed it. We've
Mhm.
changed a lot of things over 25 years, but we've never changed this
Yeah.
because it really speaks to who we are today. And so the diverse community of learners is the students of LA, right? Cultural differences. We have families and students from a variety of different cultural backgrounds. Even within our 87% of students who identify as Hispanic, there's a lot of different cultures represented in that mix. Individual differences. We have
Mhm.
students who learn in different ways. We have students who are talented in different ways. We have students who um, have many differences based on their individuality, and that is celebrated. Um, we want to focus on three types of success. So academic, of course, we want students to learn to read, write, and speak. We want them to have access to content, knowledge in two languages, um, and to have academic success. We also want social. So, social success is their ability to relate with each other, to have social awareness, global awareness, to know about their own community and the world beyond them, to be able to look at perspective. And then intrapersonal success is their own agency as
Mhm.
learners, to be independent, to have a growth mindset, to be aware of themselves, and to have the ability to reflect.
That's
So this is
beautiful.
still the core of who we are. And when you mix that with the dual language program, you get a program that, yes, is delivered in two languages, but is so much more because the curriculum focuses on social justice, and we embed social emotional learning right into that curriculum. students focus on what it means to be responsible, respectful, safe, caring, and tolerant as their 5 standards, or as we call it, the Dame Cinco, give me 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about living in a community of diversity and having a lot of different tools to connect. And that is through language, that is through learning, that is through sharing, that is through dialogue, that is through learning.
That's right. I'm hearing so many pieces come out of this story. One, it is so profound to me how your fourth grade experience really shaped how you thought about the design of the school. And then there's another piece that we've heard from some of the other school leaders that lives here as well. And that boils down to like loving the kids. When you love a
Mhm.
student and when you have a passion for what could really be beneficial to that child becoming the adult that they want to become and being able to thrive, all of the things that you just mentioned, right? Like, how do we basically wrap our arms around each of these students in a way that fully supports them holistically, academically, socially, making sure they're celebrated in their cultures and their individuality when they're inside of the multicultural learning center. Like that is so, it's coming through like in each of these stories and each of the elements that you're talking about. And one of the things that I heard also when we were prepping is all of that shows up in your classrooms. So
Mhm.
take us inside of a classroom. If we were walking into your building and going inside one of the classrooms right now, what would we see? What's some of the special sauce about what happens from moment to moment inside the classrooms?
Yeah, so our classrooms are magical. And that's not just my opinion. I when I take visitors to our school, they cannot believe what's happening in our classrooms. So our classrooms are you walk in and you see first you see, the diversity of the students. You're going to hear Spanish being spoken a lot. You're going to see English. You're going to hear English as well. The walls are wallpapered with student work, language rich resources. They're bright and light. You see different types of learning spaces. You're going to see uh, unusual furniture. You don't just see desks and chairs. You'll see couches. You'll see comfy chairs. You'll see really tiny little comfy chairs in the TK and kindergarten. You'll see rugs. You'll see tables at different heights, some where kids can stand, some where they can sit really low. Um, you see kids moving around. You might see kids in groups. You're going to hear a lot of talking. You're going to see a lot of movement, a lot of activity. Occasionally, you will see, kids sitting quietly while a teacher is speaking. However, it will be very interactive. And the kids will have opportunity to raise their hand, to share, to turn and talk. But most of the time you see them moving around. You see them working in groups, talking to each other about the work.
Mm-hmm.
You see them sharing, laughing, presenting. You often see kids up in front presenting or sharing their idea or their strategy. In math classes, you often see you don't see the teacher at the front explaining the problem. You see the student up there explaining how they solve the problem. Um, so there's a lot of joy. And the teachers
Mm-hmm.
it's oftentimes someone, we have many adults in the classrooms. We have a lot of support um, from adults in the classrooms. And sometimes it's hard to know who is the teacher. We have the teacher, we have the inclusion specialist, we might have an assistant, a parent volunteer. Um, we we rarely, I'm not going to say never, we rarely pull kids out of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big difference you see at our school. They will go to the wellness center. We have a wellness center, a beautiful little center for counseling and support that they will leave for at creative times. However, in terms of learning, students with disabilities, language learners, everyone's in there
Mm-hmm.
together with
Mm-hmm.
multiple adults, multiple resources, multiple opportunities to access learning and the curriculum.
That's awesome. And it sounds like students who matriculate through the Multicultural Learning Center have had some powerful stories. We've talked about some of your alumni. And, when we think about that confidence piece that you shared, advocacy, being able to navigate various diverse types of spaces. So, what are your graduates telling you all now about how their experience at MLC has shaped who they have become as adults?
You're hitting on my favorite things. So my favorite thing, my favorite thing is being in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
with the students and watching them and seeing how they learn with our incredibly talented teachers. And then my other favorite thing is talking to the alumni. So I've heard many different stories from our alumni, but there's a few that I think will kind of answer your question. From one of our students, I heard something that's very validating about our social justice curriculum. And she stated that she felt that her education at MLC was a catalyst of change, putting in motion young adults with the knowledge to engage in diverse conversations, to seek and pursue justice, and to use their own voices to advocate for a better world.
Wow. I mean, in her own words, it
In her
sounds like
own
the
words.
vision statement to me, in her own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that validates the work that we do, which is, also somewhat challenging, right? To present a curriculum that is diverse and considerate of many different points of view and perspectives. Takes a lot of work on the part of our educators to create that type of learning experience and make it something that's lasting and valid, something that the students carry with them as they navigate, as they enter the world and the workforce. Another student who had a learning disability and a disability at our school, he told me many years later, after he went to our school, he was with us kindergarten through eighth grade, went to high school. He was applying for a college scholarship. And one of the interview questions asked him if he thought his disability would preclude him from being successful in college.
Mm.
And he told me that he said that was the first time he ever saw himself in that way, that his disability would be a barrier for him. He said at MLC, he never felt like his disability was a barrier because of the
Wow.
ways in which he was supported, not just by the staff, but by his peers and the
Mm.
acceptance he received. That really struck me. And I asked him, I said, what are you going to do about that? And he said, well, I need to do some educating in the community about what it means to
Absolutely.
have this disability. Um, and then finally, my daughter. So the 5-month-old who was crawling across the chart paper is now an adult and she works in the field of occupational therapy. And she called me a couple months ago to thank me for opening MLC, which is something
Wow.
really special to hear from your own child.
Yes.
And I said, well, you're welcome. Why are you saying this? And she said that for the first time in her life, she was in a position where she was advocating for one of her clients who only spoke Spanish, and she was the only one in the space that could speak her language and could identify with her questions and concerns from a cultural perspective.
Mm.
And she said, Mom, I was there for her in her dying days when nobody else could be.
Wow.
And that's because of MLC. And she recognized that it wasn't just a language skill because she could have learned Spanish a lot of different ways, right? She said it was because I really understood her from a cultural perspective.
And just that arc, right? To think of your own fourth grade experience, then you and your mom, as after you became an adult, you and your mom designing this school, your daughter matriculating through that school, and then coming back and sharing how her experience is really assisting her, elevating her, giving her opportunities as an adult in her career to support individuals in ways she may not have otherwise. That is just like sitting with
Yeah.
me so heavy. That is the most beautiful thing. And we talk to a lot of parents, and while it comes across differently depending on their community, every single parent just wants their child to be able to feel safe, be happy at school, learn, of course, academics, but really be able to live out whatever dream that they have. And all of those alumni stories that you just shared are examples of just that. So I can only imagine just how excited and proud you are as a parent, and also the parents of your other students. That is just like landing with me so heavy.
Yeah, I do also speak a lot with the alumni parents,
Hmm.
and they love to come back and also share their stories of watching their children grow into the adults that they have become in the world and how they're showing up. And it's we talked earlier about the sign from 9/11, the sign,
Hmm.
all of that and all of that challenge. And then now what fuels us is these stories.
Hmm.
What is happening to our students, you know, 5, 10 years later
That's right.
after they graduate and who they are becoming in the world. We're seeing a lot of evidence that this program, not only gives them this gift of two languages, but at the Multicultural Learning Center, they're also developing a mindset and a perspective that is allowing them to be successful. A lot of them also, because we worried that it's a small school, right? It's a small school with a very intentional program that feels very safe,
Hmm.
right? Everybody is respected. Both languages are um, honored. Students who come in as, Spanish speaking, their language is so important at MLC
Hmm.
that everyone is going to learn it,
Hmm.
rather than some of the experiences others have had in the English only model, right? Where
Hmm.
Spanish was not honored or respected or considered important. And even, so what the alumni tell me is that no, it's good. It's good that MLC is a small, safe place where we lived together and we're able to create community amongst a diverse group of students
Hmm.
and families and staff because it gave us the confidence. So when we were in places, whether it be high school, college, the workforce, where we felt like we were the only person who looked like us or the only person who spoke Spanish as a second language or first language, that we we didn't feel othered. We felt
Hmm.
strong enough to be who we are in that space.
Because they had a strong foundation.
They had a strong foundation,
Hmm.
yeah. So we learned that.
And it's not lost on me that you all support your students even beyond their graduation. I love that you all started your scholarship, right? To allow families to continue to connect and create that legacy, continue that legacy, and even give back. So I'd love to give you a moment to share the story of the scholarship that you all created and how that's supporting students with our listeners.
Yeah. So in our second year of the school, my father suddenly passed away, um, which was really hard for my mom and I in the beginning years of opening a charter school. Um, and we created a scholarship fund in his honor. And so we raise money from private donation and we give a scholarship to any of our alumni upon their graduation from high school. Um, and they can get a scholarship every year that they're in college. And we've given out over the years, we've had graduating classes since 2010. And we have given out, I think, close to $60,000 so far in scholarships
Oh.
to help our alumni And now we actually have alumni in the workforce who donate back to the scholarship fund.
Hmm.
So our scholarship recipients are helping us make sure that the fund continues to grow and that we can continue awarding our students a scholarship. And if any of our listeners are inspired by this story and would like to support, you can find our donation tab on our website, www.mlccharter.org.
Thank you for that invitation. I mean, what a powerful way to support, right? To make sure that students have that extra ability, right? That extra access, whether it be for books or laptops or other elements of tuition and things that come along, costs that come along with students pursuing their dreams. So I just want to underscore that, listeners, if you are compelled to donate, please check out the website for Multicultural Learning Center and their donate page. That would be incredible to continue that fund growing. So, as we get ready to wrap ahead, two other questions I wanted to ask. When you think about MLC, and we've talked about, right, it's beyond test scores. You all really pursue quality in this very well rounded way. What do you hope students will carry long with them, long after they leave the school? What do you hope they still carry?
Well, I hope that they carry with them their confidence, living and working in different environments. I hope that they carry with them the Dame Cinco, the five standards. And I know that they do because they often talk about that, being safe, caring, respectful, responsible, and tolerant people. And I hope that the creation of MLC and our story, which they all know, serves as an example of what's possible, how members of a community can work hard to create change when it's needed. And they know that they're part of the MLC story. They know that they helped create it. My mom and I may have opened it, but as I always say, there's fingerprints all over our campus. It wasn't just about us and our vision, it was about all the people who came and put their hand into it and helped us create the school. And that includes the students. We've worked really hard to develop bilingual, biliterate, socially aware, confident, creative, curious young people who can change the world. So my hope is that they follow the MLC example in their work and lives as they navigate their future.
Hmm. So this has been my favorite question all season long to ask all our new principal leader friends. And that is, what is something that your students have taught you this school year?
Yeah, this school year is just barely starting, but over the years, they have taught me everything. I mean, I've really learned to listen to students. Um, I've learned to remain curious, to continuously be open, and to lead with my heart. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right.
It's not right.
It's not right. I've also learned that situations are never as they seem. There's always something behind it.
Hmm.
You need to really talk to students, listen to them, get the story behind the story, because there's always something there that you need to know that will be the ticket to helping them and supporting them. And leading a school requires incredible balance. I have a little rock on my desk that says balance. There needs to be firm accountability, and students really crave that and they need it to
Hmm.
grow. They need accountability, but there also needs to be a large measure of love and
That's right.
respect and kindness. You said it earlier.
That's
The
right.
students, they need to know that you care about them. They need to know that you care. I always think of Maya Angelou's quote. I love this quote because I think it sums up what I've learned from my students or how I try to live with them. And that's people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you
You
made
make
them
them feel.
feel.
That's
And
one of my
this,
favorites too.
right? And this is, you talk about being bold, right? A bold
Hmm.
leader. Yes, a leader needs to be bold and strong and needs to persevere and have a heart that cares
Hmm.
about the people you're serving. And in this case, the students and their families and the staff
Yeah.
and the community.
That's right. And we don't talk about that enough, in my opinion, when educators, right, the adults we gather, whether it's professional development, we're at conferences, the different places that we come to talk about our work and even sharpen each other up, right? Iron sharpens iron. But we don't talk enough about the balance part. Like, I love that you said you have like a rock on your desk that kind of
Mm-hmm.
reminds you, like, stay balanced, because that does allow for that cup to be filled within you as a leader so that you can continue to pour out. And then you listed for us the ingredients that we're supposed to be pouring out, right? We have to listen. Someone told me, and I forget who it was. I would pay credit. So if you guys are out there, correct me later on the social media. But the concept was always ask two more questions than what you were going to naturally ask. And I'm relating that to how you're saying you have to keep talking to students. There is a story underneath the story. And just having those relationships that make students feel like they can respond, they can talk to the adults in their building is so important.
So I had a student. This is the one that sticks with me. I had a student um, early on when I took over the school from my mom, when I became the executive director after she retired. One of my first years, really running the school by myself without her by my side, and I had a student who would continually get sent to my office like every day. And I started noticing it was the same time of day every day. It
Mhm.
was a middle school student. I think it was seventh grade. And finally I said, and he would do something in class because he knew the teacher would just send him to my office. Like, and it kept happening. And I said, what's going on? Like, why are you doing this? We talk about it. You know, you were wrong. You keep doing it. He's like, well, I really just want to talk to you. I really
Hmm.
like being here. You listen to me. You let me talk about what's bothering me at home and at school. And I just like being here. So I said, well, let's figure a different way. Why don't we
Yeah.
create a lunch appointment every week where we can sit and have lunch? And that way you don't need to get in trouble to come here.
Hmm.
And it made me realize like kids should have access to the leaders of the school when they need it.
Hmm.
It shouldn't be a place that you go when you get in trouble.
Yeah.
That something was really wrong there. This needed to be a place. You say you have an open door, right? You can
Hmm.
come in
Hmm.
anytime, but students can't always navigate that, right?
Yeah, because they're like,
And
I'm in
the only
class. When do I get to come?
yeah, when can I come? I know how to go. I just have to get in trouble and then I could come. And so it made me realize that as the new leader of the school, there was something the kids needed from me, and I had to make sure it was available to them. And I think at that moment, I completely shifted the way I led because I had in my head that I have to be this strong,
Yeah.
stoic,
Yeah.
responsible person
Hmm.
who leads the school and makes sure everybody does what they're supposed to, and that we have enough money, and that we don't break any rules, and that we do it right. And I realized the balance. I can do all those things, yes, and I can be here as a human
Hmm.
being to meet the needs of my community. I don't have to give that up
Yeah.
to be a leader.
I was the same. Well, who told us that? Like, we had to put on this persona. I almost felt like I was putting on this weird cape to be this leader that I thought I was supposed to be. But
Yeah.
it's like once I was like, no, I'm going to be me. I'm going to do all the things, but I'm going to be
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like magic when you realize we're all in this thing as humans. We're all human here.
Yeah.
And let's navigate our experience with that.
And it's like you said, it's what inspires us. It's
Mhm.
the why. You
Mhm.
ask,
Mhm.
what's the why? The why isn't because I love, balancing budgets
Yeah.
and, dealing with compliance. That's not the why. The why is because I really care about these kids
Mhm.
and their families. And
Mhm.
I really care about the future of my Los Angeles
Mhm.
and my world, my country, my world. I care about the future. And I care about our kids, and that's why I do this.
I love that.
Yeah.
Gail, thank you so much for this gift. Your story is a gift the story of the Multicultural Learning Center, and all of those who have had a fingerprint and footprint in the building of that school, the continuation. You all have had a long, rich life. And so that's a lot of people that have been able to touch that space and to help with all of the students. And now you even have alumni coming back full circle and giving back to the space. And thank you for reminding us and sharing with us the importance of language being respected and included, the importance of true inclusion, right? I love when you said all the kids are in the room and we're going to bring in a lot of adults too, so that their needs are met and they are supported. The building and the creation of community and how it pops up in your school in very organic ways because of how intentional that you all have been with how you've designed the school. These are the foundations. And I think not just at your school, like if we thought about it as humans, these are the foundations for a thriving life. We all talk about that, right? Education is one of those tools, but these are the other tools we need so that we all have the opportunity to thrive as adults.
Yep. You said it. That's so true.
I love it.
That's so true. I love it too.
Well, this has been indeed a pleasure. I'm so grateful to you. And listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, please check out the Multicultural Learning Center, their website. Donate if you feel so compelled. Share this episode with a friend, a colleague, someone that you think may really benefit from hearing about this particular school and how students are learning to navigate their worlds. Well, I am your host, Fashanta Harris. I am truly inspired today. So I am going to navigate the rest of my day with all of this joy in my heart. And until next time, stay bold by choice.